What's up, Rockstars? Welcome to another important video. This is one I've been working on a lot. I've been interviewing people. I've been doing a lot of research, and that's because I believe that we have been lied to, that we've been manipulated to by a lot of the companies on Kickstarter, especially around shipping prices. So I'm going to talk about some raw numbers. I'm going to be talking some math. I'm going to be talking some law. We're going to get down to the bottom of this right now. Thank you to my channel sponsor Into the AM. As a company that believes hard work and a great product is a proper way to conduct business, I am delighted to have them as part of the channel. They have some of the coolest graphic t-shirts around and an absolute best fit and feel that has continually exceeded my expectations. With new shirts arriving all the time and other products like boxers, hats, and even a monthly shirt club, I wholeheartedly recommend them to you. Check out the link in my description of this video for an exclusive 10% off everything they sell. Now, first, some disclaimers. Now, I wrote them down. I have some notes here. Again, I'm trying to do this like as professional as this channel of average gets when it comes to this, but I really want to get these points across so that you guys know. So please listen to this because I think it's important going into the video that you hear this. So first of all, my goal is not to create some kind of crazy hate train here. You're not going to get a lot of like super angry me right now, but you are going to get some passionate me. This is because that's the way I am. But a more informed consumer is a better consumer. So the more of us that do the math, that hear the numbers, that understand kind of where these companies are and what struggles they're going through, and then how we need to accommodate that to get the product that we want, the better. So I just want to put some context around some of these extremes that we're seeing. Not every single company out there right now. That's not the case at all. And I'm gonna show why that is too. So I am going to be obscuring some of the company's data. So I will be mentioning some companies and showing some examples, both good and bad, but I'm not going to be like targeting specific companies. That's not the goal of this at all. There are several companies doing this, and I want you to use your freaking brain to apply what you've learned from this video and then figure out who's cheating who's covering what, who's doing what. Okay, so we're going to get to that. Now, there is more to a final cost. I'm going to go over some numbers here than just shipping. This is focused on shipping because of what I believe it's doing for these companies. And again, I'll explain that in just a moment, but just know that all the numbers I give, there are countless fees and logistical issues and different things and how much you're printing. And so much affects this that it's just wild. Even your distribution of backers and where they live matters to this. And in fact, I'll talk about a specific example of that in just a little bit later on in this video. So just as an FYI, this is very dumbed down, but it still proves a point. And in fact, while the numbers are dumbed down, I would love for anybody, if they don't think I'm correct in this, that they don't think or believe in what I'm showing here. And the numbers, by the way, that I'm giving are numbers I was given. I'm just not assigning it to a company and I'm putting it at a single number. Feel free to show the math. Show the math to prove this wrong, but I think I'm right here. I've talked to several developers here who, by the way, I would like to thank. They have graciously kind of confided in me to allow me to get the data I needed from their side of things so that I could then convey it to you so that our side of things knows what's really going on. So that is where we are right now. And just to note, there are many companies hurting right now, and it's not just container costs. Everybody points at containers. It's not just that. Production costs have gone up. There's a whole lot of other stuff going on here, right? So prices everywhere are raised, and that's just a matter of life. But how much should you be paying for that raised price? Let's discuss. So I'm going to just quickly show a few things here. First of all, let's look at Burn Cycle. Burn Cycle is from Chip Theory Games. It launched during COVID, delivered during COVID. It launched and delivered. Estimated delivery was August 2021. It was delayed, of course, but it's still well within COVID crazy prices, because if you recall, it didn't happen like right away on COVID. Like it built up to this, right? Look at the shipping. That's because Chip Theory Games does flat rate shipping. And if you thought, oh, well, that's just for the Kickstarter. Well, look, I could buy it right now, and the shipping is $15 flat rate. Okay, so $5 more than the Kickstarter. You get a little bit of a deal there because of, the way orders work and incentives and stuff like that. But yeah, $10. $10. So they do this all the time. They did it with Cloudspire. They didn't increase it at all. It's the same amount, and they just delivered it. And it's a beautiful game with neoprene mats and all sorts of stuff. I mean, look at this. Look at how big that box is. $10 shipped. And in fact, it didn't matter how much you added. So you add these other games, boom, $10 shipped. and it is beautiful. This is Alex unboxing it. He did a great job. He has this wonderful camera that's not going to load for me because I am currently, look at that, neoprene mats. It's all very, very high quality stuff. Okay, so they delivered a high quality product and shipped it for $10. Now, how on earth are they doing that? Shipping's crazy, right? It's insane. $20,000 containers. That's a big number, right? That's what we're told. Well, let's try and figure out what's going on there. Okay, so Chip Theory Games can do flat rate shipping on everything. If they can do it, why can't Come On? If they can do it, why aren't others able to do this? Why are so many people claiming that they can't get this out the door, that they're gonna have to burn down copies and do all this stuff because of shipping, when there's other companies that are flat rating it for $10 and doing just fine and actually doing quite well as a company, making profit, running a successful business and doing all that, delivering big games. You saw how big that box is. That's not a small card game or something. They are shipping that for $10 freaking for everyone. Everywhere. Well, not quite everywhere. Like if you go to let's go to Cloudspire here, even before it goes up, but USA $10, that's normally where most of the containers go quantity wise, but then you have EU and UK 20, whatever. Either way, flat rate shipping for everybody, and it's quite cheap. So what's going on there? Well, let's talk container prices. Okay. In 2019, the average price was around $3,000 for a 40-foot container. The 40-foot containers are the ones you typically see, those big ones on the ships, right? You stuff a whole bunch of stuff in there. About $3,000. Now, to all of us hearing $20,000, $25,000 all the time, that's like, oh my gosh, that's so cheap. At the time, that's actually kind of a lot. It was one of the bigger expenses for the shipping process, actually. Now, earlier this year, like I said, it was around 20, 25 at an extreme case, and now it's around 10,000. Actually, it's less than 10,000. If we go here and we look at here, U.S. import demand is dropping off a cliff. It's plummeting. Right now, the price is $9,630, a 38% month-over-month drop-off. Now, there are a whole lot of things going on, and it will ebb and flow, and it will never probably go down to that 3,000 again, but it is certainly not 20,000 right now. If a company shipping right now, they didn't pay $20,000 for the container. It's just, that's not the prices right now. Right now, you can get it real quick for that price. So let's go ahead and put 10,000. Now let's do some math, okay? So 20,000, let's take that kind of super high number. 20,000 minus the 3,000 it would normally cost. So what's the difference, right? How much are you paying different? That's $17,000 per container more, okay? Now, you can fit about 1,100 Gloomhaven-sized boxes in one of these containers, okay? Now, I didn't talk to Cell4, so you don't have to worry about that, but I'm giving examples in box sizes so you guys compare. A lot of you have Gloomhaven, you know how big of a box it is. So obviously, smaller boxes, but then you have a couple expansions. It kind of fits in that. It's more than even a core pledge of mini games, right? But a big box like that, you can fit about 1,100 boxes in one of these containers, okay? So, if you can fit 11,000 in there or 1,100 in there, and there are $17,000 more, how much per box? In other words, how much per pledge are you now having to charge? Turns out at the height of COVID, at the $20,000 ridiculousness, that is $15.45 per box. So if that is the shipping increase and we're looking at containers, you should have paid $15 more for your pledge than before. If it was smaller than that, if you just did core and it wasn't as big as a Gloomhaven thing, you should pay less than 15. If it was more, then you should pay more. But let's talk now right now, okay? So right now, companies are shipping, they're still referring to this container thing and all that stuff. Right now, it's around 10,000. That's actually putting it above. Let's say they paid extra for this for whatever reason, okay? That is a difference of 7,000, okay? So 10,000 less, right? Which divided by per box is $6.36 per box. So if you have a company that has a pledge manager right now, the container costs that everybody points at that are looking at that for a Gloomhaven size box, a big freaking box, super heavy, super big, they can fit 1,100 in there. $6.36 is the increase you should see in your shipping. Now, there are other factors at play. I've already kind of explained that. There's cost of production. There's all sorts of other stuff, right? But all of that still doesn't make it huge, right? It's why they were pointing at the containers, because the containers sound like a big number until you divide it by how much games you can fit in there and how much everybody should be paying, right? So $6. Okay. So let's talk about this. Castles of Burgundy. Super, like as of this minute campaign, right? Let's see what they're doing for shipping. Okay. So for the US, you have about €32 for their giant 12 kilogram majestic pledge. €32 for my American friends here it's almost a 1-to-1. It's not too bad. It's like $35. Okay. So 35 US dollars gets you their 12 kilogram huge big thing. Okay. So they're shipping this for 35. So how are they doing that? And then to ship these two these two boxes of resistance pledge, just a core box experience here. How are they doing that? And plus the X-Men expansion. How are they doing that? Again, a lot smaller for $79.70. How are they doubling it? Why does it cost them twice as much, so they claim, to ship this than it does even their competitors here? Why is it that at the worst, a pledge like that cost $15.45 at the highest when containers were huge? How is it more than $15 more? How is it that much more? They've been lying to you. They're lying to you. It's a lie. It doesn't cost them that much. It doesn't. The math proves it. We can see what containers cost. We know how many they can fit in these containers. It's basic stuff. They're just hoping people don't think about it. So let's go back a little bit more. In 2019, I bought Bloodborne all in because I'm stupid, okay? So I haven't played any of the expansions. I've still only played the core game. But I bought a whole bunch of Bloodborne. You want to know how much that is? Boom! That's an all-in Bloodborne. Look at that. Much more than Gloomhaven, right? That is it takes up a lot of space, okay? And I'm referring to this several times. They charged me $67 to ship that to the US in 2019. And that was the most I'd ever paid for shipping, and everybody was complaining about it even back then. I was used to $40 or whatever. So when they came out with $67, I'm like, what in the world? Why does it cost so much? But I gotta get my Bloodborne. I love the video game. I gotta get it. Oh my gosh, whatever. I'm stupid, okay? We're all stupid. That's why we're here, okay? But that's what they charge, $67. So how is it now when prices have only gone up $7,000 per container, right? So not that much. Is it now $79 to do so much less? Those two boxes are essentially these two boxes right here. Everything else, it's like triple that. Okay, that's just two boxes, the core box and one big box expansion. This is 4 big box expansions plus 5 more fairly big box expansions plus 2 other smaller ones. I mean, it's just massive. Okay, huge difference. And they charge less than what a small little 2-box pledge costs now. So why are they lying about this? Why are they charging extra? Why can they still claim that we're not making a profit on shipping when we all know, based off of basic math and common sense, that they are charging more than it costs them to ship? Well, that's because it's going towards debt. Okay, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about debt and the kinds of debt they got, what the big scam is, and where there's an issue, especially for a company like CMON. Okay, so let's talk. And by the way, this is not targeted at CMON. They are not the only ones charging a lot more. I challenge you, go to your pledge managers, see what companies are charging a lot more than their competitors like Castles of Burgundy for $35, stuff like that. These honest companies. Why is the big difference? Why is this much game costs X and this much game costs Y, which is 2 times, 3 times as much as X? What happened? Ask yourself that. So let's talk about some debt. There can be debt from inefficiency. So for instance, you use a 3PL, which is a third-party logistics company, to do something like distribute board games throughout the whole world. Okay, so that's a very common thing. However, you can be more efficient in that, more detailed, the more business acumen you have, the better you are at this, the more effort you put into this, the cheaper things get. I heard a story, almost a horror story, about zone changing. So if you didn't know, they kind of go into a hub area, and then there's zones, or how far away from that hub area it is. In a place like in the US, you can get like 7, 8 zones. I mean, you can get quite a few if you're going from like one end to the other. Okay. And so these 3PLs kind of, move things around and put where things are. But they don't always look at stuff like your backer distribution. How many backers on the West Coast versus East Coast and stuff like that, right? Changing that for one of these companies saved them $100,000. $100,000 saved just by moving the needle a little bit so that more people are in like a zone 3 instead of a zone 8. Okay. So the more, and that is an example of countless things, not countless. I mean, you can count pretty high. I can count pretty high at least, but you get what I'm saying? Like there's a ton of those little things you can do to be more efficient, to be better at it. How many SKUs you have. There's all sorts of stuff you can go there, right? But that's a big thing. Your full-time employee size company. I just read about a company that has 60 employees on it. We know of companies that have 2 40-man development teams on it. Some of these companies are over 100 employees right now. And, you hear about it, doing over half a dozen artists on different things. And it's just, it's people inflate when things are good. So when things are $3,000, when it's all cheap and you're making all this money, you start hiring off the wazoo and suddenly you have multiple community managers and you do all this other extra stuff and you have people that just do this and people that just do that. And you're working on 5 different games all at once and all this stuff, right? And then of course, times get tough and, oh crap, gotta tighten it up, right? So that is kind of an inflation that they did from just kind of casually doing things, not playing it too safe. The companies that played a little bit safer are able to withstand a lot more because it affects them a lot less in that sense. So there are efficiencies in all sorts of things. A lengthy delivery because you have an out of control scope and you have to write 600,000 freaking words or support a 500-hour campaign or support 200 different scenarios or whatever it is, or you launch it way too early. And so you have to develop the whole game after the Kickstarter instead of before the Kickstarter. And so you have all these different things that can just affect you because you're having to pay all these people, all those full-time employees, the whole freaking time it does that. Meanwhile, you get no more extra money except whatever comes in the PM usually. And then of course, wasteful packaging. I'm going to refer back to this. Half of what you see in here inside those boxes is air. The only thing that's really packaged well are probably those 2 bottom things, the Kickstarter exclusives and the core box. Everything else just has a ton of air. There are some that just have like 1 or 2 minis in it, stuff like that. It's ridiculous. Okay. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on where they're just not efficient with your SKUs or that. There's a ton of inefficiencies, a ton of casualness, a ton of just either not knowing or just not caring enough to do things more efficiently and smarter and save hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in the cost of manufacturing and distributing these games. So that's the number 1, inefficiencies. Number 2, lackluster previous campaigns. We all know this. We all see this all the time, right? A company launches a campaign and it doesn't do very well. And then suddenly they quickly have another one already ready and they're going to go and do that one, or they're going to do 2 different ones at the same time. I'm getting pop-ups on here. Go away. But no, like you'll get like where they're on Indiegogo and they're on Kickstarter and then they're on GameFound and they're just shotgunning campaigns, or they do the kind of rob Peter to pay Paul thing. And so they're keeping, 5 in a row as they kind of roll them out 5 back, right? And then of course that's much more expensive to do things that way. It really is. So there's inefficiencies there. And then of course just hoping that you can pay that debt with this one. So that is the case. But the last one, the final one. And if you got to this point, thank you for caring enough about this industry and about where your money's going to get to this point. If you skipped here, welcome. Okay. The VAT scam. Let's talk about how VAT is a scam. Now, I'm not saying taxes are a scam, so calm down, but it's funny to say it that way. Trust me, it is. It makes me laugh. Okay. Up until about 2019 to 2020, almost every single board game company cheated VAT. They scammed themselves out of it. They lied and manipulated to get things cheaper. It's why you didn't pay for VAT. A lot of people just felt like, oh, the company must be paying for it, or oh, this must be happening, or that must be happening, or just whatever. Either way, I'm not being charged. And then suddenly they started charging. Oh, why are they charging me all this VAT suddenly? Well, why did that happen suddenly? Well, there was a multitude of things. There was some look at some online retailers like Amazon and Wish, and just anytime countries realize that they're just leaving money on the table tax dollars wise, they tighten things up a little bit. So let's discuss what's going on here. What did they do? What they did is they claimed the cost of manufacturing for the VAT total price, not the price that they sold it as. So let's give some examples. I got some data here. Pre-COVID, right? So back in the glory days, the $3,000 container days, when they were paying for VAT and you didn't get charged, it's because it wasn't a whole lot. For a single big box miniature game, think like about the size of Burn Cycle if it had minis in it even, right? So that level of that cost of production, a typical amount with a fairly successful Kickstarter would have been about $22 to manufacture. So they were paying VAT on $22. If you want to know how much that is, it's a lot less than when they sold that same box for $240 or $260 or whatever it is, right? Okay, so a lot less. $22. Let's do another example. You know how there are like those games that have like 2 big boxes, whether it's a 2-box core game or whether it's a core game, and then normally get a Kickstarter expansion. Those miniature board games are like this, right? So the 2 big boxes, right? That would cost about $50. There's a lot of minis there. It costs a lot more, but still, that on a $50 thing, yeah, you can incorporate that into your costs and just yeah, don't worry about it. You don't have to pay it. It's $50. It's fine. It's whatever. Now, during COVID, a big single mega box, right? So about the same as that kind of 2-box thing, but just in 1 box. About $70. Okay, so it has gone up, not a huge amount cost-wise. That's why I said the cost production hasn't like doubled anything or something like that. It doesn't cost like some exorbitant amount than it used to. It went from about 50 to about 70, or from about 55 to about 70, thereabout. And again, it depends on all sorts of inefficiencies and how much you mitigate those, of course. So anyway, that's kind of the cost that they were doing pre. $50, $22, something like that. Shoot, yeah, go for it. Okay? They were cheating these countries out of VAT. Now, what changed? Well, a few things. And this is not universal. There are some that charge by point of sale and some that charge, but most charge right now by when you actually deliver the product, when you bring it into the ports and bring it and deliver it to the customer. Okay. But they base it off of your claimed revenue. So you can't cheat it anymore. You can't just say, oh, it costs this much, right? It's kind of like when, you be like, oh, this is a gift. And then it gets out of it. It's not like that anymore. Now they actually say, oh, this is the line item. This is how much this is how much you charge now. And there's all sorts of things they have to go through where you have to have representation in the various countries that you go through and do all this other kind of stuff. And they're doing that online now. So that'll be a little bit better and cheaper for people. And there's a whole slew of things when it comes to VAT. A massive amount. Okay. So I'm not getting into all of that, but they were cheating it and now they're not. Now here's the problem. Here's the issue. This is the big one. If they are charged VAT based off of when they deliver the product, which is how most of these countries are working right now. If they do that, and I already talked about those inefficiencies where you have this huge scope or you have to develop the game afterwards or whatever, and so it goes undelivered, or you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, so you're 5 Kickstarters behind. All of those companies that have older campaigns before this change where they didn't charge VAT, if they didn't charge VAT, they're going to get hit by VAT, and they're going to get hit by the full VAT. All of it. Everybody's VAT is the 20% or up or down of that on out of what they sold on a campaign that's already costing them more because they were years behind and have had to pay the people working on it for freaking years now or whatever, or they've had to do a bajillion different art pieces or all this stuff. So all of that ate up their little buffer, their profit, right? And now suddenly they have VAT delivered. Now suddenly they have to pay on this. Well, guess what? Boom. Now our shipping costs have gone up. Now it's not shipping. It's paying off debt, which means that you can say, I don't make a profit because you're not profiting on it. It's not like you're rolling in the Benjamins. You're having to pay the fee you cheated the countries out of. You're having to pay for your inefficiencies and your lackluster delivery of stuff or your overzealous scope or whatever it might be, or just trying to get rich real quick and put a whole bunch of campaigns. And now suddenly I'm being charged for stuff I wasn't planning on being charged for. And it's not a little fee. It's 20% of everything I freaking made for this whole country, this whole slew of countries. So Anyway, combined with the $6 extra in the container cost per box, that is where you get $80. That's where you get that. The reason CMON started charging more earlier, right? It was $67 when everybody else was charging more, is because they were on the stock exchange. All their books were open. They could be viewed. They can't just cheat stuff easily, right? So they had to up that a little bit earlier. Right? Everybody else now has had to caught up, and now they're still charging $70, $200, whatever it is, that they're charging. And it's not just them. But anyway, that's why you're seeing Castles of Burgundy, right, at that 30. And that's why you're seeing stuff like Marvel Zombies at 80. And why that difference is, it's because that is not your shipping costs. That's you paying off their debts. For whatever reason they have those debts. That's what it is. They're not making a profit on it because it's going towards debt to pay it off. But it is more than you should be paying for. Don't get me wrong. And if you would love to prove why one company can ship a thing for 10 freaking bucks and not have an exorbitant cost either, and then one company can deliver the same kind of thing and charge 80, be my guest. But in my opinion, it's this. It's the debt. It's the fact that they are going to get hit with Trudvang. You know they are. They're going to get hit with all this other kind of stuff, right? Like it just, all these companies were just racing for that. And I did this whole video on why crowdfunding is broken. I'll link to it down below. You can go ahead and check that out, where I talk about these inefficiencies, talk about why these companies are getting hit so hard, how they got to this point where they can't handle the issues that are coming. A lot of it's business, and that's just how things are. It's one thing, and I always say this, right? We all have these shower thoughts. We all have these great ideas. Anybody can think of a great idea, but then actually being able to do it, having the business acumen to be able to do that, is a very different thing. And not everybody has that. A lot of these people, and I've talked to them, I mean, they had to essentially become business experts and let's learn all the different stuff. How many of you knew about a 3PL before this? Okay. It's just not something that everybody knows or understands. And these games are complex and they're difficult and there's so many different pieces. And then they're everybody around the world's doing, there's these big games. There's not a whole lot of profit in this to begin with. Not a whole lot of people are becoming super rich on board games unless your name's Hasbro. It's just not how things work here. There are people doing all right. But I mean, if we get realistically, when we're talking about like rich, this is not really the market for that. Okay. Maybe you can go to like video games or something for that, because the cost of actually making it and delivering it to people gets a lot less. Okay. So anyway, that's my thoughts on this. That's what I have determined based off looking at all the data. Does that mean that everybody's saying, hey, we're getting hit with this, that when we're hurting is bad? No, of course not. But you do got to ask why those debts are. Was it because of business inefficiencies? Was it because they were just writing things slim and, didn't have a good buffer? Was it because they just had to do more than they thought? Maybe it's something as that. Maybe it's something like they have a whole bunch of campaigns that they did paid for. Or maybe a campaign didn't do as well they thought it would and they actually lost on that, so they're having to pay for that one. There's all sorts of things you can do. Maybe they're hiring too many people. Maybe they're too big of a company. Maybe they're taking things too lax. Or maybe they just want some sweet, sweet money from you and they can just point at containers and say, look, containers are expensive, and you'll just buy it and pay for it. Maybe they have an IP that'll just blind you and have you pay more than you should. Whatever it might be. Just think for yourself and compare them to competitors, because there are people doing this straight. There are people charging what they should charge and companies that aren't. You should be looking out for that and figuring out why that is. That's it. That's all I had, guys. I hope you appreciated this video. This took a ton of effort, multiple hours of interviews and reaching out to many different companies, trying to get data from them and talking through that and planning this all out and writing kind of a bullet point script and doing my research here. And if you appreciate that level of a look into this industry, there is a join button or Patreon link down below. There's also a PayPal link where you can just donate a little bit, whatever you want. I greatly appreciate it. Stuff like that really does help. This is an expensive industry, not just for them, but for us. You guys know we spend thousands on these games. And if I'm going to be spending thousands on these games, I want it to go to companies that are run things well. I want it to, not just pay for other stuff and other inefficiencies, but just pay for the product that I got. I want to spend wisely, but it costs a lot of money to do that. So if you appreciate this, please do consider that. If nothing else, like the video on your way out or write a comment letting me know that this was helpful for you. With that out of the way, have a wonderful rest of your day, guys. Take care.